All right, our next one is from Just Delta. What made you come back? Just in general. Besides, I know you said there was kind of security breach that gave you the idea for uh, the new game, but what made you want to come back in general?
Basically, just I think I've answered this, but like actually, I think that the answer for why I was originally going to remake it, so the attempt a couple of years ago, I believe I just see Just Delta's review and was like, man, that's really cool that people are still talking about my fan game. I might actually come back and like try and do something else with it. Um, yeah. So in a small way, Just Delta did actually partially inspire the comeback. So you can thank them.
Yep, I'm back to making fan game reviews again, but only for this fan game with more of a look back. A retrospect, as the name of this review implies, but not on one, but two fan games, one of them being the more popular and famous of the two, while the other one has been overshadowed for an understandable reason. So let's begin with the one that started it all, that being Five Nights at the Krusty Krab is a weird game. It's not the worst one I've played, far from it, but it's not the greatest one either, unlike the others that people can always think of, but this fan game easily screams the 2015 era of fan games. Less of new and inventive mechanics we got right now, and more of, what else can we turn to a FNAF game? Good times. Anyway, let's begin with those positives. To start off, the animatronic design. Now this is a weird thing to put as a positive, but it's fitting that they look like this for a reason. They're meant to look like off-brand replicas. How fitting. Secondly, the AI. I can't really describe it, but the way it moves is bizarre at best, since most games tend to follow a pattern for most people to both follow and understand. But with this fan game, they seem to be on a quest to do whatever they want with how unpredictable they tend to be. And finally, let's talk about a mechanic that everyone has slept on, and I recently found out about. The lying mechanic. To explain, you know that when you just got onto the canvas, the position or areas for the canvas are really dark. But if you leave it alone for about 5 seconds, the area begins to brighten itself up, similar to how your eyes might readjust themselves in the dark, which is a really cool mechanic. But this is where we talk about the negatives, and start with this mechanic. Like I said before, it's a really cool mechanic, in theory, but in execution, this becomes more of a hindrance with how fast-paced the nights can become, and the fact that it doesn't readjust the time for it to brighten itself up throughout the nights really hurts itself. Second issue would be both the monitor and the scrolling. The problem with the scrolling is that it doesn't feel right. Compare that to the modern or past fan games where they found the right amount of both speed and turn for the scrolling, while here it feels rather janky and awkward. The monitor here also seems to have a mind of its own, since it does work as it should as per usual, but every now and then, when you do pull it down, it will automatically pull itself back up. A pretty big annoyance for those wanting to focus on being the night. The main menu looks rather bland coming back to us 6 years later. There is no map layout when viewing the canvas, making any new players confused on what the layout is like. And finally, Sandy. She is the most broken thing in the game. She can be a pain in the ass to deal with, but also breaks everything around her, from disobeying her mechanics to staying to one side of the door for almost the entire night. Her original mechanic is meant to be a mix between either Bonnie or Chica and Foxy in FNAF 1, and you're meant to stop her with this door. But with how bizarre, unpredictable, and busted the AI is in this game, she can ignore this door completely and go to your office in mere seconds, making this third door mechanic pointless. Now that should be everything covered for this fan game. Overall, This fan game is about by the numbers and generic as it was for most Star fan games back then, but a good starter nonetheless. So let's talk about the sequel that everyone remembers the most. Five Nights at the Chum Bucket is a sequel done right type of fan game. It expands upon the location, changes the style of both environment and characters, and finally changes how to do sequels, by making actual sequels than prequels. Less of another FNAF 2 copy and more going to its own direction type of game, similar to another egg-related fan game. So let's start with the positives. To start off, again, the animatronic design. As I said before in the overview, this is a major step up compared to the first game's animatronic design. The models in the first game were accurate to their show's counterpart, but were kind of simple in terms of both design and detail. Now in Chum Bucket, the animatronics got a major step up in terms of both detail and complexity, making them look like a twisted version of their original counterpart, which is perfect. Less of new and friendly type, and more something big and revolting type of designs. I wonder why people stopped doing these types of designs. The second positive is the sound design. Like I said in my overview, the sound files used here are still perfect, with the doors, cams, and the jump scare sound files giving off what I would expect to hear. But the two soundtracks I want to talk about are both the atmosphere and the menu track. Both of these tracks are made by the same composer, Kevin MacLean, and the track using during the main night is called Aftermath. Even though the game has only one night track throughout the game, this single track does its job perfectly. Without this track, playing the game wouldn't be the same. And finally, the menu track, called Quint's Song, A New Man. This is easily the most memorable part of this game. The menu is also a big improvement over the first game's menu. It's simple yet foreboding is the best way to describe Chum Bucket's main menu. First positive, this clock or timer. Believe it or not, Chum Bucket was the first fan game that introduced a real-life timer, meaning it does take 6 minutes to beat each night. So that's a fun fact for you. And finally, the overdrive. This mechanic is the most interesting of the bunch, since this one mechanic is connected to everything related to power, and with the press of the button, it will go into the overdrive state, both shocking anything close to the main generator, and you can activate anything power related, so the player has something to micromanage throughout the night. But with that said, this mechanic really does sound good on paper with how it's connected to everything, but that becomes something people do forget about until that certain character does come around and attack the main generator. So this mechanic does become something I would say flawed the more and more I think about it. The same can be said with Karen. She does only come out near the end of the game, but I would say that the way she plays in terms of gameplay is more of a copycat than its own unique twist, unlike something like the vents up top that Squid can come from. Since if you just change one of the vents from either side, Squidward would instantly change which way to go, so cheesing him isn't as effective as the owl from Flumpty's 2. But if I were to change how Karen could work, it would be this. I would change it so it doesn't completely stack one cam, but as slowly stack all of them the closer and closer she does get to the office, implying that maybe something is coming. But if there's one thing that I felt like were underused, it would be the phantoms. All of them act the same, with them appearing only in the office, and the way to get rid of them is similar to Phantom BB and FNAF 3. But how would I change them? I got nothing. Finally, let's talk about a mechanic that the dev looks back in sour taste. The flashlight. The reason being with how easy it is to make it permanently stay on during the night, cutting part of the micromanagement and dealing with one of the characters into nothing. As someone who abuses a lot, I don't blame him looking back at this game in slight disappointment. But again, This was an oversight on his part, and if he still had the original files to the game, it would be one of the first things he would immediately fix. Then again, not every game can be bug or glitch free. There's always a way. What else can I say about these fan games? Well, if you are someone who wants to play a fan game like many others back in 2015, Chum Bucket would be the one to go for. I would stay away from Krusty Krab though. That game is haunted.